It's good to have you join us on another edition of Journalist Hangout on TVC News. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo and compliments of the season. Today on the program, we'll continue with our review of events that shaped 2020 and project into how things will play out in 2021, especially with the judiciary, party politics, roads and infrastructure. And later on the show, President Trump of the U.S. concedes at last and promises orderly transition of power. I will be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Mayor Akinpelu. Journalist Hangout starts now. Yes, of course, the benefits of hindsight and foresight are essential for societal growth. At this time of the year, it is essential that we analyze some of the key issues that defined us as a country in the year 2020 and project into how things will play out in 2021. Politics and the judiciary are like Siamese twins and played critical roles in the polity in 2020. How did party politics play out in 2020? And what will be the fate of political parties in the country this year, especially the two main political parties? But let's start off with the judiciary as I bid welcome my guest, Babajide Kolade Otitoju. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you for
having us. And Mayor Akinpelu, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, what were the biggest events that tested the will and the mettle of the judiciary in the year 2020, and how did they perform, in your view?
Well, let me start by talking about the executive order that the president issued, which was meant to give fiscal autonomy to the judiciary. And that is what the Constitution recommends, that funds meant for the running of the judiciary shall be handed over to the heads of courts. The president took that decision at that time, and many of us were happy. He had not done anything extraordinary because he did what the Constitution prescribed, stipulated. But what did we see? Nigeria's selfish governors came together, went to the president, harassed him, and told the president they were even threatening to go to court. To go to court over something that is prescribed by the Constitution. So as we speak, the president is here to gazette that executive order. What we want to see is a judiciary that is not, that does not see itself as inferior to the executive or to the legislature. We want a judiciary that is truly independent.
Truly independent.
And one of the things that I think we will have achieved by that executive order was independence of the judiciary, because the judiciary, they still go to the executive asking for money to do this and to do that. And you still find governors boasting about the fact that they bought cars for judiciary workers. Ordinarily, if the funds have been made available to them, they will have bought these things by themselves. You will not need a governor boasting, standing on the rooftops and announcing that he just bought an SUV for maybe a judge or something.
Judge.
So that was a significant development. But of course, we can't jubilate because what did we see? The president has not gazetted the executive order. It has not taken off because our selfish governors went to the president the moment he made that announcement and stopped him literally in his tracks. And then, of course, there were big cases that were decided in the course of the year. I'm sure people remember the pre-election matter that sacked David Leon as elected governor of Bayelsa State. And interestingly, most ridiculously, with David Leon, that the Supreme Court had proclaimed as governor. We had a situation in which a tribunal, an election tribunal, went ahead to sack, Doyediri, that the Supreme Court had proclaimed as governor after the pre-election matter sacked David Leon.
David Leon.
We had a tribunal proclaiming David Leon as, sacking Doyediri. But of course, the appeal court threw away the case, and at the level of Supreme Court, they did not even bother to entertain it because it was a ridiculous judgment. Then, of course, we had the Hope Uzodinma matter, one of the biggest cases at that time.
Yes.
And we also saw, in the course of the year, very senior lawyers being berated by the Apex Court for demanding that the Apex Court reverse itself over the judgment that it had given. Of course, those big lawyers were fined. It was really surreal to see some of our biggest lawyers fined by the Supreme Court. So many big events happened in the course of the year, but I think these ones were truly the biggest in my view.
We'll come back to your expectations for 2021, but Mayor, would you like to add to what Babaji has said?
To me, I want to start from where Babajide started from. I think that what will have made a significant change in dispensation of justice in Nigeria, that opportunity was passed by the president, because the executive order and his inability to cassette it and made it work showed the weakness again of Mr. President. For whatever reason that I cannot fathom now, he seems to have abdicated power to the governors. He has made the governors to be so powerful for them to get whatever they want from him. You understand? And what he would have done to advance the cause of justice in Nigeria, it missed that opportunity, because the major problem that we have is that the executive, one way or the other, influenced the cause of justice by influencing judges. If you notice that it has always been, there was a time that the AFCC made a song and dance of Supreme Court justices and how they were said to have been bribed and collected bribe and all that. So, and the major problem is that apart from the standard of living of these judges, you understand, their condition of service, it's just that they are beholden to the executive for everything that they need. By putting them on their own, by giving them financial independence, they will be truly independent, and then they don't need to be beholden to the executive. So, and the governors know that, because a lot of them use these members of this judiciary for one reason or the other, because they know that they can always force them to pander to them. So I think that that's the most significant that happened last year. The president missed the opportunity to advance the cause of justice.
Babaji, what would you expect from the judiciary in the year 2021, given the habits of 2020?
I expect consistency. I expect the judiciary to stay focused. I expect the judiciary to advance the cause of justice. I expect less cases to be decided based on technicalities. I expect a lot of progress in our overall jurisprudence. You see, I'm always excited when big cases are decided and lawyers can cite those big cases in future. For example, the Supreme Court decided that courts can sit, can have virtual sittings and all that. And I think if you look at what's going on around the world, it's a progressive development. You can have virtual sitting. The Supreme Court has already validated and said there's nothing wrong about that. In the course of the year, we had the case of Ojuzo Kalu decided in his favor based on technicality. Why? Because the judge handling his matter had been promoted to appeal court and he came back to give judgment in the matter. The Administration of Criminal Justice Act permits him or permits a judge to take that kind of decision. But the Supreme Court eventually ruled that it was unconstitutional. And of course, what the law says is that if any act contravenes the provision of the Constitution takes precedence. So I'm not surprised that Ojuzo Kalu got that judgment in his favor. But of course, the case, they ordered them to do a retrial. So we also remember that this, what's his name, Police Ametu also got away based largely also on technicality. Because judges ought to be very careful. If you do anything that suggests that you are not objective, then if the case goes to a superior court, the case will be decided in favor of the appellant. So I want to see less of the resort to technicalities in deciding matters in the course of the year, because most of the time justice is not served when technicalities are used to decide matters. Justice is not ultimately served. So let's have our judges show consistency. If courts of equal jurisprudence, of equal of concurrent powers, give judgments in similar matters that are antithetical to one another, it suggests that something is wrong. The CJN has warned about this, but we still see it happening again and again because our big politicians have found a way of influencing judgment in our country. This is something that I'm truly worried about, and I hope that in the course of the year, the judiciary will show itself to be independent, and judicial officers will show even-handedness in handling matters before them.
That's food for thought here. And your reference to technicalities and your optimism about seeing less of that reminds me of lawyer Jiti Ogunye's post during the Supreme Court judgment on the case of Imo State. He said, like the courts, like the gods, the courts are not to blame. And I'll bring that to you now, Mayor. If the financial autonomy still does not come for the judiciary this year, are you optimistic about the expectations Babajide has from the judiciary in 2021?
I think to some extent I am, because financial autonomy is not something that they've been operating without the financial autonomy. So that should not hinder them from doing what is right. Though it could have helped greatly in the dispensation of justice, but that should not be the criteria for them not to be able to perform to expectation.
Absolutely.
So I expect that the judiciary will live up to its expectation as the arbiter in terms of settling disputes. And also my expectation is that democracy, which is government of the people, by the people, for the people, will be made to hold in Nigeria, because it is the people that are supposed to decide who govern them. So I want to see less influence of the court in deciding those who rule over us, because it seems now that election is not as important as what you are going to the battle in courts. So if you want to win elective office, you will budget as much money for lawyers than
as much as for the field.
Yes, for the campaign that you want to do. I want to see less of that. I want to see a situation where the court will not be the major determinant of those who win elections. And I also want a situation where, like Wajide said, we see less of technicalities, because if we allow technicalities to play a major role in dispensation of justice, then it is as much as if justice is denied. Because somebody can get away not because he has not done that offense or committed an offense, but because he has a brilliant lawyer, or he had a judge that didn't do what was expected of him. So we should not, because, for example, if you look at Oji Uzakalu, for example, it's not as if they said he's not guilty of the offense, but that there's a technicalities that the judge should not have, did not have been promoted to the appeal court, so he shouldn't have sat on that case. So, and it's free now, and it will take another long time for it to be determined.
Since 2007, no?
Yes, so it will take a long time. So technicalities also is
some
justice
of the witnesses
denied.
will have died.
Yes, so I want a situation, my expectation is that we want a situation where there will be less technicalities in this position
in the future. Yeah. All right, we hope that the judges are listening by proxy. Next topic now, Babajide, what are the biggest, I know this is where you have a lot of love for, the biggest political events that shaped party politics in 2020? Yeah, 2020.
Let me take it from I can say all of the big decisions by the courts happened in the course of the year 2020. The President Buhari was pronounced winner by the courts in the course of the year. Makinde, the governor of all of those big election matters were decided in the course of the year. So we can still say to an extent there were political events, but in my view, for the APC, the biggest political event in the course of the year was the eventual sack of the executive cabinet of the party led by Adams Oshiomhole. The people opposed to him had been making moves, especially those governors, about 4 of them. They were very desperate to kick him into touch, and they had been making moves for a long time. He survived around March. He survived, but invariably they got him in the course of the year. So that was the biggest political event that happened: the sack of Oshiomhole and the constitution of the interim executive council of the party, which also has the mandate to organize congresses and convention of the party, led by the former national secretary of the party, who is now governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Buni. And the truth is, the way Mai Mala does his job will determine the future of the party, because a lot of people think that, this is an attempt to kick some people out of the party and all that. But Mai Mala says his major concern is to reconcile aggrieved members of the party, bring them back into the fold, and he's already succeeded in bringing former Speaker of the House of Reps, Yakubu Dogara, back to the party. He's been working on some governors from the PDP. So last year was a very eventful year, and how he organizes that convention will determine, and the so-called re-registration of party members, which I find strange, will determine the future of the party. I believe that there should have been an updating of membership, not a fresh registration. But in Nigeria, we no longer surprise me as a people, because for me, I've never seen where it's done. And that you now tell people admin a party for you. Yes, a lot of them have left for the PDP, people like Saraki, but you can always update the register. You don't have to do a fresh registration. That's my own attitude to this thing, because it gives the feeling that there is an attempt to kick some people out of the party. But we will wait and see what happens at the end of the day. But for the PDP, I think the victory of Godwin Obaseki in the governorship election of Edo State remains the biggest event during that calendar year for the PDP, because it brought them together and they were truly happy. But they couldn't sustain that momentum shortly after, because they lost woefully in Ondo State. So, but to defeat his godfather and take one of the states that the APC had controlled for years off the APC was truly a defining moment for the PDP. But for them too, in the year 2021, we have the governorship election in Imo. I mean, in Anambra. We have the election of a new ESCO, a new national ESCO of the party, also this year, because the mandate of the Secondus-led ESCO will expire this year. How they are able to sort themselves out and organize an election that will not be rancorous, that will get all the major stakeholders on board. I'm keen to see how they want to do that, because already people like Wike, the governor of Rivers State, who is perhaps the strongest individual in the party, are already even complaining about that ESCO. So it promises to be a very interesting year for both parties.
For you, Mayor, I envisage that the biggest event, particularly for APC, may be the same. That's the exit of the Oshiomhole-led.
Yes, it's the same, but it's slightly different. Like, I'm looking at it from the point of view that I'm looking at it from the ascendancy of the governors in APC. You know, because Oshiomhole as chairman wielded so much power that he put a lot of governors in their place. You know, in Ogun, in Safara, in places...
In Imo.
You know, he was able to put the supremacy of the party over the governors. And over time, they've wanted to hedge him out because they were bitter and they didn't like the idea. But he survived it because the president kept supporting him. And the attempt to remove him, that he survived because of some high-wired politics at the executive meeting, at the NEC meeting, so National Working Committee meeting. So for them to, but eventually, the governors, through the problem between Obaseki and Oshiomhole, the problem in Edo State, and how ingenious they were to ask the ward chairman to suspend him and all that, they were able to now convince the president to say, look, if we don't remove this man, the party could collapse on your head. And the president, for the first time, agreed to the governors, you know, and Oshiomhole and the National Working Committee was set aside. So I think that the most significant thing is that the governors, the ascendancy of the governors within the APC power structure, you know, it was at that time that they were able to seize the lever of power, and then we made it possible for them to remove Oshiomhole. For PDP, I agree that the Obaseki's victory was the most significant thing that happened in PDP.
For them.
Because it was a lot of people felt it was almost impossible for him. At a time, he was abandoned. Almost all the staffs were resigning every minute, and it looked as if everything was against him. You understand? But the PDP were able to rally around him, and they ran a good campaign, and they was able to win. So I think that's what's nothing.
Now, for 2021, particularly for the APC, how do you think Malabuni will run the show in such a way that there will not be echoes of the past, particularly as the party now begins to look to the future?
I'm not optimistic. Why I'm not optimistic is that he has started well. He has started well by bringing in Dogara, by bringing in the governor of Ebonyi. You understand? That is a major coup for him. That's a major achievement for him, because the Southeast is like the base of PDP. And for him to be able to go, and the governor of Ebonyi is a major player in that region. So for him to be able to convince him, for whatever they have promised him, to convince him to leave PDP, to come to APC, is a major, major achievement. But my problem is that why I'm not very optimistic is that twice now they have postponed their convention, which is a sign that they've not been able to get a consensus. And you know, nothing destroys a party than division within the convention. If you have contending forces who are not ready to compromise, you understand, it will be very difficult for you to organize a convention, because we know that they will take that problem to the convention floor. And right now, they don't seem to have the confidence to be able to organize that. That's why, and it's like postponing the doomsday. And as we move towards 2023, there are a lot of factors that are going to come into play, which is going to make it more difficult for him to be able to achieve that. Because now, who the chairman is will determine where the presidential candidate will come from and all that. And already we know that the politicking for 2023 has started. So I'm not very optimistic, but I hope that he will be able to swing it, so that they will not, because what made APC to come into power was the same problem that as they moved towards the election at that time, they could not undo the contending forces within the party. And it became so rancorous that a lot of people left and APC came to power. I hope that's not the same thing that will happen to APC.
Hopefully. Babajide, as we exit this topic, how will APC and PDP swing the biggest challenges that they went through in the year 2020, and that will shape, you know, their outlook in the year 2021? Before you answer that, let's take a break. You're on to Journalists Hangout on TVC News. We're reviewing events of 2020 for political parties, the biggest events that shaped their outlook ahead of and looking on to 2021, and see how those events will also help them to stand strong. Stay with Journalists Hangout. We'll be right back. Glad to have you back on Journalists Hangout on TVC News. Yes, we're looking at the rear view so that we can have a clearer front view. Babajide, you were about to take that question before we went for the break.
Yes, you said the ambitions of the two political parties are very similar, and their futures are tied to successful organization of their national conventions. The PDP, the current, the national school led by Uche Secondus, their term expires, their first term expires this year. So they will have to go for a national convention to either re-elect him and his team or replace them. National conventions can be very tricky. where you are able to achieve unanimity, some form of consensus, you can have a rancor-free national convention. Everybody goes home happy, or at least most of the members will go home happy. You satisfy all the big stakeholders. But if we go into a national convention and a lot of the big stakeholders are not happy, then the center will be able to hold. The tradition is always that if the North produces the national chairman, then the South will produce the presidential candidate of the party. That has always been the case. You recall that in 2014, Nwodo was the national chairman of the PDP, right up to the day of the national convention. But because it had become inevitable for Jonathan to emerge as the candidate of the party, they had to find a way to replace Nwodo with Alhaji Haliru, the former customs man whose son was killed by his wife recently, not long ago. Nwodo had already kick-started the convention, but they found a way, they got him to stop, and Haliru had to start a fresh convention, just so that the Northerner emerges as the president, as the national chairman of the party that has already made up his mind to produce the incumbent president as the standard bearer of the party. So whoever emerges from the PDP as national chairman of the party will suggest how the party members are thinking, or where they think the candidate of the party should come from. So it's going to be a very delicate, very complicated affair. And for the APC, it's going to be similar as well, because it's not easy. When they are elected, they will still be in office by the time of the election.
The 2023 election.
Yeah, so you have to bear in mind the fact that you can't simply change them before the election, because it's not going to be easy. So if the party chooses as its national chairman someone from the North, it suggests that it's already thinking that this thing should go to the South this time. So how the two parties will decide is best known to them at this time, but it could decide the future of both parties. And then the governorship election in Anambra will also take place this year. On paper, PDP is the strongest party in the state. But of course, the current governor of the state, in the view of many political watchers, may even end up in the APC, because he has a good relationship with the president and all that. You saw what the president did for him before the last election, just to show that the president would not get involved and would not use Abuja might against him. So he may want to repay the love demonstrated by the president by joining the party. And he already has in mind someone like Soludo as the person that he will want to succeed him. So what happens in Anambra, both parties are really working on Anambra, because APC is desperate to make inroads into the East. One of the ways by which they can do it is to get some of the governors from that part of the country into their fold. Whether the people will go with their governors, no one knows. But it is possible that the governor of Anambra, seeing clearly that he may not be able to hold APGA together and get APGA to retain that state, may end up joining the APC. But there's enough time for all kinds of negotiations to happen. But for both parties, both the PDP and the APC, Anambra is very, very crucial. APC needs it to be able to make inroads, begin its inroad into the southeast, while the PDP also needs it to reassert the party as the most dominant party in that geopolitical zone. So 2021, we offer a lot talking about politics.
As I come to you with the same question, Mayor, for the APC, it appears that 2021 looks good on paper, given its gains in 2020. Against that backdrop, with talks of an Igbo presidency, what do you think, or do you think the PDP can use that as a trump card, to switch political participation and events in their favor ahead of 2023 for the year 2021?
I don't think so.
Okay.
APC, you see, nobody sells power a la carte. And when you look at APC, it will be unfair for anybody to insist that the APC ought to pick an Igbo presidential candidate. Because when you look at the support of that geopolitical zone to APC, there's nothing to write home about. The geopolitical zone is basically a PDP area. So it will be unwise for APC to reward a geopolitical zone that did not support the party. So it will be very difficult for APC as a party to pick an Igbo man as a presidential candidate. That is the reality. You may wish, yes, everybody wants power, but it's not given out like that. So if you don't contribute to a party or to the victory of a party or making of a party, you cannot expect to reap from a party that you did not contribute to, as it were, because it's only in Imo that APC had a foothold at that time, and the Ebonyi, it just happened, and we are not sure.
Even Imo, it was through the courts.
Yeah, through the court. We are not sure that the followers in Ebonyi will follow their governor. We have not been able to confirm how that will play, because majority of the power brokers within that state did not follow the governor to APC. So I don't think it will be possible. For PDP, if we want to look at fairness, PDP should have willingly pick an Igbo man as their presidential candidate. Because from inception, the geopolitical zone have supported PDP completely since the time of Jonathan. So if they want to be fair, that is what they should do. But politics don't work that way, because the power brokers within PDP, the young Turks led by Wike, are not looking towards an Igbo candidate. You understand? Give or take, that power block within the party is looking towards Tambuwa, and is not Igbo. So, in fact, that is one of the major problems where both parties find it difficult to announce the zoning arrangement for 2023, because they know that by announcing it, they will have shown their hands where they want the candidate to come from. So each party is waiting for the other.
But the determinant would be the chairmanship for the...
Yes, yes. It is not when...
elected positions in the party.
Eventually, they will be forced to do convention. And when they do convention, they have to pick the chairman of the party. So where they pick the chairman of the party will determine where the presidential candidate will come from. Yes, that's why both of them kept delaying it, because they know that it's a major decision. But both parties right now are not looking towards the Southeast.
I think that parties choose their presidential candidates based on conviction that that candidate can win, not simply because a geopolitical zone had been loyal, had always voted for them over the years. If that were the case, nothing says that the South, because the South, they've always supported the PDP as well. Nothing says the South cannot produce the president. Although Jonathan emerged by default because the death of Yaradua and being an incumbent president, he was retained. No party will simply go into a contest based on sentiment and not the desire to win. Because when you look at you do the maths, even if every eligible voter in the East voted for the PDP, it's just a fraction of the votes from the North. I'm not even saying all of the North put together now. It will not even be up to what you get from the Northwest alone.
Yeah.
That's if every eligible voter
In the Southeast
yeah,
voted.
because those states are small and the ratio of PVC collection is also low. When you come to the South, Lagos is the only state that in terms of PVC collection can rival Kano, for example. That's based on what we got during the last voter registration exercise. Lagos actually had more registered voters than Kano. But when it comes to mobilization for election, Lagos does not come near Kano. People are so politically conscious and political awareness in northern Nigeria has always been very strong. So if a party simply decides, oh, because these people we've always supported us, therefore, let's give them the presidential candidate. They can do that in choosing a national chairman. And that was actually Wike's argument the last time that, look, if you say national chairmanship, you go to the Southwest, how about South that has always voted for a party? But in pushing for a candidate, a governorship candidate, a presidential candidate, he didn't bring the argument. He brought it for the national chairmanship of the party because he knows that winning is also important. And you cannot win if you do not have the voting strength. So because the party has members from the North, from the South, they will look at who is likely among these candidates, who is likely to give us victory. And they will also be looking at what the opponent is doing. I can tell you that it's possible if the opponent presents someone from an area, then they too could be looking in that direction. Because we saw that once the APC presented Oshomole as national chairman, they too went ahead and picked the Secondus from the same South-South zone. Because Secondus is a job from River State. So the parties will be looking at one another and be thinking that who does this party want to use? Let us change our own strategy. That's why you see that they both were postponing their even during the primaries, they were extending the time for their governorship primaries because they wanted to see what the opponent was going to do. So it promises to be
very interesting. Yeah. Absolutely. So next topic now, and Mayor, that comes to you. How would you rate the Buhari administration in terms of roads and infrastructure in the year 2020?
I think the government did well. And they did it quite well. Given the fact that there is paucity of funds, they were able to do financial engineering through borrowing and all that to be able to do significantly well in infrastructure. When you look at roads, they were able to do major roads in almost all the geopolitical zones. And they are perhaps the biggest achievement in the rail system. They were able to put on stream a lot of projects in the rail projects, which is very significant. So I think in 2020, the Buhari administration did relatively well when it comes to infrastructure.
Yeah. BQ, same goes to you.
Yes, when you look at 2021, you see that if the government stays focused, if the government is not distracted by the policies of 2023, they'll be able to do a lot more because the plans are there. to actually deliver on critical infrastructure in the course of the year 2021. I will expect, for example, that the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway will be delivered before the end of this year. The pains that people went through should cause us to do our best to deliver that project in 2021. We wasted so much time after Jonathan left office redesigning the road to some extent, and for months and months, nothing happened. By now, it will have been delivered. Because if you look at what RCC was doing, even under Jonathan, the RCC end of the job, which is from Shagam interchange area, had been significantly done. Is the Julius Baja end that had been problematic, and their own excuse is that is largely a built-up area, so plenty of traffic and all that. So, well, the president has expressed the desire to deliver it this year. I'm sure the minister is also looking in that direction. Now, of course, we have the second Niger bridge, which hopefully, even if they can't deliver it this year, maybe early in the year 22, they'll be able to deliver it. And of course, the second runway of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja, the second runway, 14 billion is already been earmarked for the second runway, and it is hoped that they will be able to complete the second runway in 2022, but the work should start this year, 2021. Of course, to the Mambila project, which is a project that is dear to my heart because I risked my life to go and do...
To report it, yeah.
an expose at the site of the project. In the 2021 budget, counterpart funding to the tune of $200 million has already been provided for that project. So it gives me hope that at least work should start at the Mambila hydropower project site this year. And who knows, maybe in 3-4 years or a little more than that, we'll be able to deliver that project. The new terminal too at the Anamamino Kano International Airport is on the cards. And of course, after building of the new runway at the Enugu International Airport, they're already thinking of a new terminal at that airport. So there is a lot that should be done this year, hopefully, and all eyes will be on ministers like the former Lagos governor with his white hair on his head, and Rotimi Amechi, to deliver on the promises that the administration has made. Just yesterday or so, the governor of Lagos State went to see the president to present the plan for the rebuilding of Lagos after the senseless destruction of Lagos by some crazy hoodlums who hijacked the NSAS protest. It means that there is so much work to do around here, and I'm hopeful that if the rebuilding of Lagos would actually start with the rebuilding of police stations that were destroyed. We need these policemen to be able to sit in their, use their offices, plan their operations in a conducive environment. Right now, when I drive around, I see some of those burnt police stations. I feel bad because they shouldn't be working in such an environment, and we want them to produce wonders, to do wonders. So hopefully, it will be a busy year in terms of infrastructure, a lot of rebuilding. And one of the ways by which we can exit recession is by spending a lot on infrastructure. I remember Barack Obama said we are going to spend ourselves out of recession. hopefully my president is thinking along that line, and if they can do that, they will have cemented their legacy. Those who abuse you today, in the future where they can see what you left behind, they will be praising you.
Commend you.
Giving yourself immortality is what matters the most. So the president has to focus on giving himself immortality, and he has the people to assist him to make that happen.
Yeah, and as you say, let's hope that politicking will not be a distraction in the course of rebuilding infrastructure. Before we go very quickly, important for us to talk about, Trump conceding defeat after a very long, drawn battle following the November election in 2020. Mayor, you want to talk about the breach of the Capitol Hill?
Yeah, I think what happened yesterday in America was very unfortunate. But every people gets the government they deserve. President Trump will probably go down as the worst president ever. In terms of when you look at, yes, he did well when you look at the economy before the pandemic. But when you look at the totality of his 4-year tenure, it was very, very bad for America. And what he did yesterday was to destroy over 200 years of democracy development in America. He turned America from a first world country to a third world country. And why he considered because suddenly he realized that he was alone. Everybody.
Even his deputy had left him.
Yes, everybody left him. In fact, what is the most two things that you have to look at was Senator Graham, who was one of those enablers who were around him, was embarrassed and said, oh, I can't take this enough, count me out of it, enough is enough. Because it is unbelievable that a sitting president of the United States will encourage domestic terrorism to the symbol of democracy in America. Many years
he was the one who
future,
told the people to...
Yeah, many years.
Indeed, the symbol of democracy in the whole world.
Because on national television, in fact, later a picture emerged where he was in a control room watching what was going on there
and
with his son, and he was happy. He was excited with himself.
BK, let's take it very quickly.
I supported Donald Trump because he invited our president and promised us Tucano jets that the Obama administration refused to make available to us. I will support anyone who wants to help my country defeat terrorism, but I'm ashamed of him. I'm ashamed of him. I never imagined that an American president would be inciting people to violence. In 150 years, what he did, what happened yesterday had not happened in America. And you had a woman shot to death in Hero. Trump is a shameless person. So I don't think he's concerned about how history treats him. I don't think he's concerned. He's too conceited to think about how will history judge me. No, I don't think he's the sort of person who thinks out actions thoroughly. And if Pence could say, look, this person was well elected, after more than 60 cases that have been thrown out, you still continue to fill people's heads with lies. Trump is a disgrace. And Twitter suspended him for 12 hours, but he still came back and saying that the election was rigged. I mean, it's a disgrace, and people learn from events. I hope Americans will learn thoroughly now.
Because that's who they are.
Yes, and
it represents them.
You see, when people say America has become a third world country, no, I disagree.
No, I said
I've seen people talk about it. I even say, no, they are no longer saying na climb. That's the way Nigerians speak. Tiananmen Square didn't turn China to a third world country. In fact, they emerged out of it stronger. I believe that a post-Trump presidency, America will emerge out of it a stronger nation.
I believe so.
I believe so. I'm very confident.
We have a few more days before the inauguration of the president-elect Joe Biden. Let's hope that these few days will be time for President Trump to, reflect on events of the past 4 years. That's all on Journalist Hangout today. Join us tomorrow for another edition. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.